Muy buenos días a todos los que están reunidos junto al reverendo Patricio Lara allá en Santiago, Chile. Es para mí una bendición y un privilegio grande poder saludarles a
Good
todos
morning
ustedes en
to
esta
all of
ocasión
you gathered along with Reverend Patricio Lara there in Santiago, Chile. It is a great blessing and privilege for me to greet you all on this occasion and ask the Lord for all the blessings contained in the thunders, in the voice of God in this end time, revealing to us the mysteries of the seventh seal. You may be seated if any of you are standing. In this end time, God has promised a great manifestation of God's power where everything that was happening in that activity that was shown in a vision to Reverend William Branham, and he said that there had been preachings, which is the most important thing that God would be carrying out, just as it was the most important thing in every age and in every dispensation, the bringing of the word for the time when God sent his messenger. That was the most important part of that messenger's work. Everything else revolved around that word that the messenger brought, and it was carried out. An age was established, the work corresponding to that age was carried out, and the purpose for which God has sent that messenger was fulfilled. That's how it was in every age of the church. And at the end time, we see in that activity that he saw preachings, which Dr. William Soto says that is the most important part of that stage, the word, bringing the revelation of the mystery of the seventh seal, which is what would give the church bride that rapturing faith. And he saw, then also after the preaching, he saw the altar call. He also saw how everything was established, was ordered. He saw the prayer line where people were directing where to go to that left side of where Brother Branham was. If he was looking towards the pulpit, and to the one who was on the pulpit, well, it would be to his right. And it formed that line. It says it was endless. Therefore, for that activity that ministry was carrying out there, which Reverend William Branham was seeing, it was something that had already been increasingly in that messianic ministry. And that at that point and stage of that ministry, what he saw was already being fulfilled. But it was already in a total form, that is, at its peak of that ministry, of that revival. Now, notice that the one who was there bringing that revelation, then we see him carrying out those miracles which were seen. That is, first, the miracle of the word, and then the physical miracle. Now look, for the time of Jesus, the first thing that Martha and Mary and those who were there saw was the word. And it was the most important part of that moment was that he spoke to her and said, "Did I not tell you that if you believe you would see the glory of God?" And he had told her that the dead would hear the voice of the Son of God and rise. And he told her that Lazarus was going to rise again. In other words, look at all the preaching he spoke to her there. And he showed her through the word that event was going to happen. In other words, he was giving her a preview. He was prophesying what was going to happen with Lazarus. But he had to have the people there present, aligned. He had to have that wheel within the wheel at the same time, so that miracle could happen. Therefore, for the end time, because Lazarus represents those who will resurrect for the end time, there must be the wheel within the wheel. And the wheel we saw is Christ, the Messiah, the Anointed One. And within the wheel, within the church bride, everything must be in harmony so that the promise of the resurrection can occur. And even the miracles that are seen in the tent vision must be carried out through that union of Christ and His church, which Brother Branham said the church must be at such a point where sin could not enter, where the church bride would have divine power without limitations, where the days of Ananias and Sapphira would return, because in order to carry out that event and that manifestation without limits, it is because at that moment everything is already in order. The church bride, if it is not all adopted at that moment, then would be adopted, because there would be no unbelief among the people, and thus the Holy Spirit could move without limitations. In other words, it would be something where God would show that He was in the midst of the people, bringing the miracle of revelation, and that there He was showing the world that they were living through or would be living the end of that kingdom of the Gentiles, where there would be just a little bit of time left, because then the resurrection and transformation would be carried out, and 30 or 40 days of a manifestation of God's power in all its fullness in sons and daughters of God on a worldwide level, and then the Great Tribulation, meaning that there would be 3.5 years left, plus 30 or 40 days, plus the little time that we see of that activity, where before and after, we don't know how many activities that ministry had before, and how many activities after that, which Reverend William Branham saw, are going to take place. Therefore, the kingdom of the Gentiles would have little time left to finish that stage and that empire, where feet of iron and baked clay would be crushed, as seen in the image that King Nebuchadnezzar saw, which was interpreted by the prophet Daniel. Therefore, we are already living in that stage, and where what was seen by the prophet Daniel, who was given that revelation by the archangel Gabriel, we see that in this end time it would be fulfilled, where that stone, not cut by hand, would strike that image and crush that kingdom of the Gentiles. In other words, for that stage of the tent vision, we see a time where there would be just a little more left before the event of the resurrection, because in those days the resurrection would be moving among us, where those of the sixth dimension would begin to appear, and they would be united with the group of the elect who are alive. Therefore, for that manifestation to be carried out in that place, well, there has to be a people who is working hand in hand for that place to be there. And we have already seen how God has blessed the Latin American people and those in other countries who have identified with that vision. And together we have built that place for God, for the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel to reveal Himself, to show Himself to the people, and to fulfill what Reverend William Branham brought, which the angel gave him in vision. And now we have it. We have the Great Tin Cathedral, and we have the most important thing, which is the Word. We have that manifestation that he saw, which is the manifestation of the second coming of the Lord, that messianic ministry in the midst of His church, and the instrument in which God would be fulfilling that promise, one of the members of the Church of the Lord Jesus Christ. And we were also told that just as he saw that activity in that place, Brother William says, it is very likely that we would have activities in other places. And he spoke about that in several messages, as in the message which he preached in 2006, a few words of greeting there in Goiânia. And he was referring there to the auditorium that our brother Andres Cruz was building. which is an auditorium where, as you can see, we have had several activities there. And we have already been there about 3 times. We've had about 3 or 4 activities there, and now we will have another one on January 11th. We can confirm the date. January, let's see here on the calendar, January 11th, we will have, of 2026, we will have an activity there in Villahermosa. Everyone is invited, all those who wish to go, and so we can have that beautiful fellowship there that we have always had whenever we are in that place, which has been a great blessing, not only for Mexico, but for the entire planet Earth, wherever there is one of God's chosen ones. Now, we've read this message, but so that you can have this detail here, and to refresh our minds and memories, look, he says, so God has given us a plot of land with the building, or a building with the plot of land, 440,000 square meters. And that place can hold a lot of people, because the problem we always have in every country is that we prepare a large place and soon it fills up and we have to find a bigger one. But God has provided a comfortable place in Puerto Rico, both to prepare a building that can hold many thousands of people, as well as parking for people, because a place of thousands of people needs parking for thousands of people too. And even more so in Puerto Rico, because in Puerto Rico, a family may consist of 4 people, mom and dad and 2 children, and then when the children are old enough to drive, most families have a car each, and even if they're going to the same place, they each want to take their own car. At least out of those 4 people, mom and dad, let's say they have one, they take one, they go along together, but the children, each one wants to take their own car. So in that family, there's already 3 cars. See? That's how it is in Puerto Rico, and maybe in some other countries where it is the same way. Now he goes on to say, also, in the Mexican Republic, Reverend Andres Cruz has built 2 buildings, along with one that he's building, or is going to build, a 3rd building along with the one as well. And that's already done. We've already seen those 3 buildings side by side to each other. And it is a great hall that God is using in this end time in the 3rd pole, as well as the auditorium in Tizayuca, which is being prepared there, of which I take this opportunity to ask everyone to make an effort so that everyone is there hand in hand with Tizayuca, and for that hall to be finished soon, where we would already have a large place there in Mexico City to hold these activities under the tent. They're called activities under the tent, and although the building is made of metal, but it is under the ministry of the tent, under the ministry of the 3rd pole, that all these halls and large venues are being carried out. Those that are under construction, which are the large ones, would also be called services under the tent. Now he continues to say there, it says, it can currently accommodate around 20,000 people, and with the other one that is going to be prepared, that would be another 8,000 to 10,000 people, around 25,000 to 30,000 people. And in other places, they are also looking for land and places or buildings where large number of people can gather. With one in each country, large activities can be accommodated, because people from other cities and other states can come to that place. Now see that it's not that people should start looking for large places or land to build a large venue if they have a small group, but rather that that congregation with that minister who has a hall for 30, some have for 70 or 100 people, and they are there. Now don't go looking for a hall or a piece of land of many acres to build a great building, when close by you already have a place or a pastor who has a large auditorium. And rather, what you should do is join that pastor and collaborate with him and pray for him, so that when that third pull and that ministry under the tent have a journey to that place, we will all go to that place. And so we don't have to go to all the little places, nor do we have to divide our efforts among many large places when we can all come together. As he says there, have a place in every country. And if it is a big place like a big country like Mexico, then there can be one. See, we have one in Villahermosa. Now there's going to be one in Mexico City, and we have another one up north as well. So in that regard, there are places that are already prepared. And currently there in Chile, in Santiago, our brother Patricio, Reverend Patricio, was telling me that behind him there's already that piece of land that since the time of Brother William, there had been talks of acquiring it because that land has access to the avenue. And it would be joined to the land he already has, which is an auditorium he already has, where it is, has been, is, and will continue to be a central location for activities there in that area. You see, to have a place like that, and we already have it, it is rather to add to the one that already exists, which has all the logistics and everything. So now, at this time, look, this opportunity has risen. And so we can have everything up to date there in Santiago. And I call to all the brethren there in Santiago and throughout Chile and everyone who wishes to help our brother Patricio, help him with that part there of that land, which, thank God, look how long ago I remember that was so because I've been there, and Brother William would always tell him, buy that land behind yours. It's good for you, buy it. But the opportunity had not arisen, and now it has. Well, we're not going to let that word fall to the ground. Rather, I am one of those who takes hold of that word and says, Amen. And I am and will be arm in arm with Patricio to obtain that land, which is behind there. And so we will keep with that block there. And we already have the hall, we have the logistics and everything there, which will continue to be that place of great blessing. There's a meeting that he'll have tomorrow for other brethren there who are there, and he will talk to them about everything that has to do with that land in order to cover the cost of that land. So he and I have already discussed all of that, and I told him, well, speak to the brethren and tell them that I agree with that. If necessary, when we are there, well, we can talk a little bit about that there too. But in the meantime, I get there, well, we can already start contributing and helping so that we can soon have it paid off. They already have a part of it, that is, they have the most of it, and they already taken the first step, and there is a little bit left. But for that little left, well, we need the help of the people there in Santiago and the rest of the places or nearby congregations that also have the opportunity to help pay off that land so that we can have the documents and papers up to date on all of that. And that must also be done in every place, not necessarily large ones, but the small ones. They must have their documents up to date, all their records and everything up to date. And as for large plots of land and large auditoriums, well, the ones that are already there, help those who are there to expand. Either expand them or buy land next door. But I specify those are the places that have already been seen to be established. See, everything he wrote there, that the third pole was something that was established. So we are already establishing the auditoriums themselves. And the pastor or any pastor or congregation should not feel bad that you are not the one who has that place. That place belongs to everyone because we all go to that place and we all have fellowship with one another around the word. It has nothing to do who it belongs to because everything belongs to God. The ministries belong to God. Imagine that. Everything belongs to God. The world, the earth, its fullness. Therefore, we are rather stewards. And all united in harmony, we enjoy that large auditorium that God provided for that pastor. And the pastors will go there and they join and stand hand in hand with that pastor and his congregation to be united with that pastor of that place. We talk about these things openly, that is, without having religious zeal or ministerial zeal or jealousy. Rather, we do not envy or we do not become jealous of that ministry. Rather, we ask God to help those pastors who have those places, and we support them in prayer and also in contributions. But remember, don't go looking for plots of land and compromise the congregation if you have a small place and it is being a blessing for that congregation. Then continue to meet there, to gather there, to continue to have the activities there. And when there is a big activity in that country, then we all move to that big place, which is what he was saying here. At least, see, he says, to have, and also a place or building where a large number of people can gather. With one in each country, you can handle large activities. See? So we focus on one. And that way we put all our efforts into one and move forward. But if everyone is searching on their own accord and committing themselves with the congregation to that land to make a big place, then we don't have a mutual effort to at least finish one correctly. If we can't finish one correctly, how are we going to try to make more? We're going to try to finish the ones we have, or like this one of Patricio, that the opportunity arose recently, and I told him, let's take it. Let's take the advantage of the opportunity and finish paying it off, so that we already have all that whole area there, and we have already annexed that land, which we need as a parking lot and everything else that is needed in that place. Well, these were just a few words for the meeting that our brother Patricio was having, but I think we can also apply these words to all the brothers and sisters and share with them the blessing that Patricio has there with this expansion. Look there, also in Talcahuano, there in Concepcion with our brother José Hernandez as well. God gave him a hall, and now he sent me a video that he is expanding. And he expanded the land, the auditorium. He already put up the beams. He put the sheets. He's even making the mezzanine. See? One that is already done. He is doing it now so that it can hold double or triple of what he had there. And we are also going to be there on the date already, the already established date, a Sunday morning there. We will be there with our brother José Hernandez. You see, I mean, we would already have one there in that area there, and we would have another one over here in Santiago. And so in the different countries, we have auditoriums like that, big ones, because what was shown in that vision that Reverend William Branham was seeing was that it was something big. That even our brother William says that all the places will become small. And as I've told you, look, if you have a small place, and so far it's been good, the important thing is that they are listening to the word, the teaching under the tent, the connection with the tent, which is what was said to be done. And you say, but in my place, I don't have a big place, but there is land, we can buy land. Look, don't worry, because you have, in that place, surely, there are stadiums and huge indoor courts, which will surely be given to you by the government, even for free at that time, because surely there won't be time to play or soccer teams to come to the countries to play or other types of games or sports. Surely it will be a difficult times, and the least that the world and the countries would do is to hold a championship, because there would be no time for that. So at that time, the auditoriums and stadiums and all that would be obsolete. They would no longer be of use to the kingdom of the Gentiles, but to the Messianic kingdom. In that final stage, it would. There they would be useful, completely useful, see, and they are already built. And as I've said, perhaps in that place, the one who had a small auditorium will surely be the one with the largest auditorium in that country at that time. You see, because the government gave it to them. Because they saw that in the auditorium of 30 or 20 people, or 30 or 40 or 50 people, a glorious manifestation of God's power was being seen. And people began to arrive, and there was no more room for them, and they were already flooding the streets. But from such a small place, and so many people gathered there. And where are they connected? They're connected to the tent. And what is happening there? Look, that what is happening over there is also happening here. But how is that possible? But what you need is a bigger hall. Look, we have a stadium over there. We haven't used it in so much time. Certain things have happened that we haven't even looked at it. It's obsolete. I can get the stadium for you. Let's all go there. There's bathroom there and everything there. Let's go. And the government itself can make itself available and find favor. That pastor and that congregation find favor in the eyes of the government. See, you have to look at things that way. And God would open it and will open the path for you, because all those who are connected to the great tent cathedral are the ones who will be seeing that manifestation. There's an excerpt which we will read later where he said, those who are connected to the tent, to the great tent cathedral, those halls will also be filled. Therefore, if you're not connected there, do not expect people to come to you to have that manifestation in your place. Rather, it is for those who are connected and have followed the instructions left to us by that powerful archangel to be connected to the great tent cathedral. Those congregations will indeed have the third pole manifestation within them, and that minister's ministry would be crowned in the end because he followed the instructions of Dr. William Soto Santiago, that powerful archangel. You see? In other words, when you follow the divine laws, everything will turn out well for you. Well, may God bless you all and keep you, and carry on, Patricio, with the meeting you are having. And we can also share these words with all the brethren today so that they may hear them. And that way everyone may know these little details that we have given in these words. That it was for, I was sending these words to Santiago, Chile, but now we can share them with all the brethren as well. Well, may God bless you and keep you today, Saturday, October 11th of this year, 2025.